Welcome, Reanimated fans, to this week's episode. I am H.A. Conrad, here with my intrepid and patient co-host, Stuart Tiffin. Hello, Stuart.
Hello, HA. What's up?
You know, it's winter. It's Walking Dead. It's dark. It's awesome. But before we, this week we're going to be reviewing episodes 10, 11, and 12 of The Walking Dead Season 5. But before we get to that, we have a few little news items that we'll throw your way. Some of them are pretty funny, actually. So I'm going to kick this one off with this article about some teenagers that got lost in the woods while filming a zombie flick. And it's not funny. I mean, I'm glad they were found, and I'm glad they were found in good condition. But the funny thing about this is that they were, and this is in, where, Mississippi, I think? It's in the South.
Where's Saucier?
I feel like it's got to be in the South, because I feel like it's got to be somewhere southern. Harrison County, Mississippi, I think. In any case, they were finally recovered by the Harrison County Fire Department and Sheriff's Department, and who were a little concerned because when they picked up the kids, they were covered with blood, which was obviously fake blood, but at first there was a bit of dismay. In fact, that's how they termed it in this article. So they're all good, and they were very happy that they got rescued. They used their cell phones. The responders used their cell phones to pinpoint the location, but they were out there for about an hour. And it was all for their homemade zombie movie. So hopefully they got it done, despite this little snag. And I think that they should put it up on YouTube, and hopefully we'll get to see it someday.
Yeah, I just enjoyed this story. I like hearing about kids going out and making movies
I
in general.
like that.
So
I hope it doesn't dissuade them, I guess, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So, do you want to grab the next one?
Yeah. So this is like a heartwarming story. A bunch of Hollywood actors pitched in to make a kind of like a homemade zombie movie, but directed by Sam Raimi, for a guy who's got a terminal illness. A 16-year-old guy he's got stage 4 adrenal cortical cancer.
Right.
But they just the star list of people who were like, yeah, we're gonna all work together and make this movie. Just run down it real quick. You got Sam Raimi, Catherine Hardwicke. She directed Twilight. At least one of them. So they got a couple of directors.
There you go.
They got Ted Melfi, Johnny Depp, David Lynch, J.K. Simmons, Laura Dern, Penelope Ann Miller, Richard Chamberlain, Jade Pettyjohn, Chad Coleman from Walking Dead, Pritesh Shah, Keith Allen. One of these dudes who in that list of names who I didn't recognize his name is also from Z Nation, like a current show on the air right now. Cool. But just so the guy wrote the script, I think, the kid.
Yeah, this was sort of like, and he wrote with somebody, which was nice. And so that, I think this is pretty cool that they all pitched in and did this. I guess it's like help a teen make a movie week. That's great.
That's amazing.
And David Lynch, did you see David Lynch was doing this too?
David Lynch was in it.
Awesome.
Peter Farrelly of the Farrelly brothers, I assume, was one of the producers supervising it. Cool. Just so the kid Conti gets to write it, act in it, and it was just pretty cool.
I think it's awesome, and I think some of the photos from it are pretty cool.
Like they've got good makeup, yeah. And I would like to hopefully this gets released at some point to the public. I feel like this could be.
I really love the and it's a Make a Film Foundation, and they do this. It's not just for this kid; they do this for other people too, which was kind of cool. And I love the little group shots with all of them. Like you've got like Laura Dern and David Lynch hanging out with Johnny Depp and this kid, and it's just, I don't know, pretty awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Well done, stars.
What was the name of the film? It was called Giandola something.
Yeah, like it's
Black
Giandola.
What else you got?
I'm gonna let you take this one.
I don't know if you've seen Hannibal, but Mads Mikkelsen plays Dr. Lecter in the TV show Hannibal that did 3 or 4 seasons. It's a really terrific show. It's also got Lawrence Fishburne. It's like an insane show. It's really, really good. and Mads Mikkelsen basically, in addition to the other very strong cast, he is like a ridiculously good Dr. Lecter. And so he's also in the upcoming Rogue One movie, and he was doing a press junket for another film when it turns out that he is a huge fan of the genre of zombies. And so he's a quote from a recent Gizmodo article is, "I do love Walking Dead. I do. There's something fascinating where when the zombies are moving sufficiently slowly, you actually want to live in that world, you know, because you can just fucking chop the shit out of them." Which I can
Nice.
imagine him saying this quote to. And then he says, "But you should always be aware. Don't get too close up because that's when they come." As he mimes biting someone's neck as a zombie. I think he might have really enjoyed his role as Dr. Lecter if he's like this bloodthirsty.
Maybe. The only thing I feel like I've seen, because I didn't watch Hannibal, although everybody keeps saying I should, and I haven't, so maybe I should try that. But he was in some Bond films, the Casino Royale, right? That's
He was the main
mainly
villain, yeah.
that's mainly what I know him from.
He does a lot of villain work, but I think he's as Dr. Lecter, as like this shrink, he's also extremely up to a point is extremely charismatic and extremely approachable, which is why, and also the cooking is really impressive in that
Sweet.
show. It's
Well,
mostly human meat, but whatever.
you kind of have to do it with the payoff for the Silence of the Lambs, the film, right?
Mm.
Fava beans and all. Um, so all right. Well, I hope he gets his wish. I think he'd be a good. I think he plays a good villain generally. So I think it'd be nice to see him in a little Z film. The next story, our friend in Ohio, this poor gentleman that goes out of his way, spends all of his money, like puts together this zombie nativity scene for the public's enjoyment every year. Jason Dixon has he set it up again this year. For those of you who listen with any frequency, this is the same gentleman who got sued last year by the town council and fined like something like $13,000, or they were going to fine him like that amount to take it down because they didn't agree with the spirit of the zombie nativity scene. They were quite upset because his baby Jesus or baby zombie is just this little zombie thing with fangs. So some people, I guess, are offended by it. And they showed how unhappy they were this year by basically taking apart a lot of the nativity scene. So,
Well, not the town council, but the
not the town council, but
vandals.
just vandals. But it's I feel kind of bad for him, but I also thought that something like this might happen because if they couldn't get him to take it down legally, I think some people just get upset and do stuff like this. And maybe he gets more publicity and more people come and see it. I hope they do because I guess he's still trying to pay off his legal bills. So he sells some T-shirts and stickers and stuff because he's still kind of in the poorhouse.
That's rough, but
Yeah.
hey, he's taking a stand, and I guess you all have to pick your battles, and he's picked his. So there we are.
Yeah, and in some ways, like the vandalism, I don't know how much worse they can make it look. They kind of beheaded the Mary zombie, and it maybe it just makes it look a little more spooky. But
Even spookier.
yeah, so maybe they didn't fulfill their goal. But anyway, more power to you, Mr. Dixon. Plus, his name is Dixon. Come on,
You can't go wrong.
Godspeed for the next zombie nativity scene. And on to the last on to the last item. Take it away, Mr.
Okay.
Tiffin.
Yeah, so this is recent breaking news. Breaking news on Reanimated. We don't really break news, but Sonequa Martin Green, otherwise known as Sasha. Did we ever find out what Sasha's last name was?
I don't know.
Tyrese and Sasha being siblings. Well, Sasha Williams, she has been cast as Lieutenant Commander Rainsford on the upcoming CBS Star Trek Discovery, the new Star Trek show. Of course, she's apparently not the captain, but she is the lead. That's kind of this big distinction that the articles I've seen today are making, is that the show is kind of gonna or the story is gonna basically
revolve
around her character,
which is pretty awesome. I'm
Yeah.
pretty excited about this, and to cast a woman of color in the lead is a big breakthrough.
Yep.
On a show like this. I'm not surprised it's Star Trek.
No, because they've been breaking those molds.
They have been breaking those walls down since they began, and this is why I love Star Trek. So I'm really excited, and I love her as an actress. So I'm really excited to see her on this show.
Yeah. Does, of course, raise some eyebrows in terms of what's going to be happening to Sasha, who's still very much alive on The Walking Dead. Can these shows exist next to each other?
Well, they're saying that, I mean, who knows what they're actually going to do, but they're saying that she's still going to be active on both. And, they can work around her shooting schedule. But, I'm raising a skeptical eyebrow about this as well, because that's to play a lead on a show like a Star Trek series is tough. Though Walking Dead, she does have a little bit more cover. It's not like she's featured in every episode. So I feel like they should be able to make it work. I mean, she's in every episode, but sometimes, the storylines don't necessarily follow what's going on with her. So I hope she stays on both, because I would definitely miss her from The Walking Dead. I feel like her character has come a long way in this series.
We get to see some of that character progression in the episodes that we're going to be reviewing today.
Yes. Pure happenstance? I think not.
Perhaps not. But we have to remember, in our timeline, as far as season 5 goes, Sasha has recently lost Bob and then her brother Tyrese. And the last time we kind of saw her character, she was burying her brother.
Yep. Yes, with some dead frogs. No, that's
Yeah.
There's a lot of weird stuff going on with animals in this particular episode.
Gets a little crazy.
So, our group is in some rough shape here. They've had some losses, some pretty profound losses. And before they could even really mourn Beth, they're then having to mourn Tyrese. And they are definitely they're just wandering around and pretty depressed. And this is a pretty bleak episode.
Oh yeah, this is definitely breaking them down so that they can build them back up. Right. That's the purpose I feel like this episode serves in the story arc.
And I would like to note that Rick's beard in this episode is out of control.
Oh, come on.
It's been getting there, but this one, he's just looking...
It's bushy, but it's not long. It doesn't go... It's not like hipster length or anything.
Not yet. It's just sort of the way it's like mangled all over his face that just worries me a little bit about Rick. But, But without further ado, let's talk about the episode. So...
Just one more beard comment. I really think that this was more Andrew Lincoln's desire to grow a big bushy beard.
I think perhaps that's
more than
true.
Anything else, because I think he said on Talking Dead, or one of the interviews I saw on Talking Dead, that he was just waiting for one of the producers to tell him he had to shave. Like, no, you've taken it too far. Your character wouldn't do this to himself.
Your beard now has its own meme. It's too much. But it leads me to ask you a question as a person who has been bearded and not at different times in this kind of a world. Would you do the beard, or would you try to keep that sort of off your face so as not to be grabbable?
I guess that's fair. My first instinct is to say, of course, you would have a beard. You're not going to shave, and your shaving options are going to be your knife or like some scissors, maybe. So you can keep it short enough that nobody's going to be able to grab it. But I really don't think you're gonna be clean shaven in the apocalypse.
Yeah, I guess I could see that. I just think at the level that Rick's beard is currently, it seems like a danger to me, and that had me thinking. So I was like, I need to pose this question to Stuart during this show. So.
Again, I don't think his beard ever got long enough to be a hazard. In that way. I mean, I've had longer beards than what he's rocking.
Again, not the length, the condition, I think is the question here. So. But in any case, they're wandering around with beards. They're really dirty in this episode. Daryl is looking particularly grimy.
Right.
Like it made me think how long the makeup person must have had to take to make him look like specific, this grimy and in a specific way. And then do you have him just sort of roll around the dirt and throw some grease on him? I don't know. But they are looking really just... ground in. And so you have everybody kind of mourning in their own way in this episode, everybody working their way through this period of grieving. So, you definitely we have Maggie, and the last person in the world I think she wants to speak to starts bothering her in this episode, which is Father Gabriel.
Well,
And
Gabriel's trying to do the only thing he can possibly do in this universe, which is be a counselor, right?
well, I guess that's true, except they all know that he hasn't exactly been the greatest in this role, and Maggie slaps him down with that, just throws it back in his face that
Yeah.
you had one job and you did it poorly, so I'm not listening to you, jerk.
Well,
So
that's fair.
there's that. And then you've got Daryl being counseled by Carol, and she's just, she gives him a knife that belonged to Beth. She implies that she knows how much he's hurting, but that he's got to figure out a way to deal with it. And then, of course, Sasha, who's bearing frogs. That was kind of weird. So
There's a lot of just sad sack faces. I mean, the show opens with Maggie crying.
Yeah.
And a zombie walking up behind her like she doesn't even care.
No.
And she's reacting so slowly that, yeah. If I was Glenn, I'd be really worried about her.
I would be worried about her too. Also, in that scene where the zombie sort of comes up on her, it's like this weird thing where she's just kind of like in these trees. So she's got a little bit of cover. She still has some instinct of survival, but you're right. She is delayed in her reflexes.
Yeah. She assumes that the tree is going to stop the zombie rather than look around. She doesn't even look at it. It's behind her. And she's just so busy being sad that she's like, oh, I guess I'll kill this zombie. That could have totally gotten to her if, just like a half an inch of tree difference or something.
Yeah.
That's all. I just thought it was curious. They're all looking for water and not finding it. That's part of the introduction.
And part of why they look so grimy.
Yeah. So they've run out of water. Sasha's in a dry creek bed, like trying to dig up some water. She's not finding any, but she does find some dead frogs, which is, like you said, very strange. And they say that it's been a day and a half since they've had any water, which, as we have talked about before on the show, it's in the rule of twos. 2 days without water is pretty much the limit.
Sasha does some things in her mourning period that are risky, and she gets called out on it by the group. But specifically by Michonne. She's basically trying to deal with this group of zombies that comes upon them and is just kind of following them. It's kind of weird to me because I think that they know that they're following them, but they don't seem to really be bothered by that. And then they just kind of deal with them. And I guess because of Sasha's actions, they all are kind of now vulnerable. And so Michonne calls her out on that. She's saying some angry words a lot in this episode. So,
It's good that they show that Sasha is actually having to come to, or having the reaction that we were saying she should be having. But one question I was wondering, after they point out that she has found a dry creek bed, why don't they just follow that until they get to a larger body of water?
Yeah, that wasn't clear to me either, because it seemed like something Daryl would have come up with.
Just anybody who's ever been in a dry creek bed.
But I think part of and then they end up on the road. I think maybe they're hoping that it's going to lead them to houses or other places that might have water. But then again, they're from this area, so maybe they know that if this is dry, everything else is too.
Possibly. Okay. The road ambush. I really enjoyed that scene. They set that up perfectly.
Yeah, no,
Rick,
it was
Rick
good.
talks about waiting until they have the ground in their favor, but then they find this perfect place, and everything goes great until Sasha is dumb. Following that, they do some sad car scavenging where Maggie has that weird reaction to the zombie in the trunk.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. She's she opens up the trunk. There's a zombie kind of gagged and bound, so clearly somebody was in trouble, and they put their mother or sister, whoever's in there. And then, it's this really interesting little scene where Maggie opens it up, looks at it, kind of freaks out, closes it, then freaks out some more because she hears it banging around, because I think she just wants to put the zombie out of its misery. And then, it's one of those things when somebody is just so frustrated and upset and they're trying to do something. And in this case, she just can't open the trunk again, and just kind of explains to Glenn, which makes it doesn't make sense. It's not logical. And she's like, there's a zombie in there. Can't open it up. And he's like, okay. And then it's like when somebody tries to open a jar and they just can't, and then somebody else comes along and opens it in a second. That's what this was kind of like. And he pops open the trunk, takes care of business, just kind of pats her on the arm. And, I think she understands that he's trying to take care of her, but I do think he's worried about her without question. These are not normal Maggie behaviors, but, you got to give her a pass. She lost her sister. Tyrese is gone, but her sister especially, that was the last of her family.
And Daryl, in addition to just being really dirty, goes into the woods, finds an old dead deer, and he looks like he's about to start crying.
Yeah, he's having a hard time crying. It wasn't just a dead deer. I didn't, understand the narrative with the other dude that was dead there.
Everything is dead. There's basically nothing alive. All the frogs are dead. The deer's dead. The people are dead, except for this pack of wild dogs. It appears.
And some of them look pretty well groomed, so that was kind of
Well,
weird.
yeah. The German Shepherd, I think, was had
Oiled
done.
down, slicked down.
Yeah, they'd done a good job on his hair and makeup because he looked really matted. And Sasha gets to get out some of her rage on them.
Right. And then, next thing you know, they're eating some dogs.
And they refer to this scene again later, I think, when Glenn is talking to someone else and he's like, if they saw us yesterday, he's talking about Aaron at that point and the Alexandria people. If they saw what we did, I'm like, what you did was eat some dogs who were about to attack you. There's absolutely nothing wrong. Did you have a reaction to the scene like, how dare they eat dog?
Well, my thought, see, I wondered about that too, and then I thought maybe they were their dogs somehow. Because I don't know, like maybe they had somehow belonged to the Alexandria people, and maybe he was worried that they were actually belonged to somebody. Because it was weird that they were just out there. But
I thought this was like clearly a dog,
feral,
a
dog
group
pack.
of dogs that had been domestic that had gone feral since the zombie apocalypse.
I would suspect that wouldn't happen that quickly, and if there's still deer and stuff in the woods. They're not. I just don't think they're gonna go after people that quickly. But anyway, yeah. So you got Daryl wandering around. He just keeps. I feel like he keeps going out into the woods to kind of figure it out or to be able to cry by himself.
Yeah. Well, that's He goes and smokes a cigarette and has a good cry.
After he self-inflicts him, like burns himself, which is a little like. Or,
It was pretty intense.
That was a pretty rough little scene. So. And this is his MO though. Whenever something like this happens where he gets really hurt, this is his sort of this is his coping mechanism. He always goes off into the woods and kind of deals with it. We saw it when when his brother died. We saw it when he was looking for Sophia and then he found out that she died. I think he's just that's just what he does, and Carol knew that, which is why I think she basically said you got to go and kind of deal with this. So I don't know, I thought that was kind of interesting.
Yeah. Then the episode takes a sudden turn, doesn't it, after this Daryl crying scene, because he comes back and they've found this stash of water bottles on the road.
Which, okay, I have to say, yeah, I see him there. I'm not touching those. Would you? I mean, I know they're super thirsty, and I don't blame them, but Carol immediately
I
is
totally
like,
would.
You would?
Yeah. Well, you do some tests, right? Like, first you put it on your arm. If you don't have a allergic reaction or, like, a skin reaction, then you take a sip and then spit it out. If you still don't have a skin reaction or, like, a reaction in your mouth, then you drink just a little bit and then wait. It's time. It's a process that takes time, but this is just what you have to do.
Well, I guess so. I just, I agree with Carol. Like, they could have put something in there, like drugging them or something like that.
Sure,
and you're
but
not
then
necessarily.
let Eugene drink it at least. He's like the least useful person of the group.
Well,
he's willing.
He seems to be really willing to do that, and Abraham just totally is like yelling at him and stuff.
Well, that's an important scene too, because Abraham, for all intents and purposes, hates Eugene's guts.
Right, but yet still protected him. So that's, maybe that's just his knee-jerk reaction. But luckily, the group is saved because it starts raining torrentially at that point.
And then it suddenly becomes like a hurricane within 5 minutes.
That was a really... And here's the thing. With a storm like that, you can feel that kind of thing coming. It's not just going to be immediate like that. But okay, I'll give them that. And the group finds shelter in this barn, takes care of the remaining walker in there. Some interesting little exchanges, like Maggie takes care of that walker, and Carol's just like, Maggie's like, oh, she had a gun, she could have taken care of it, and Carol's like, some people don't give up, we don't give up. And then I kind of knew we were turning a corner into like a more hopeful ending to this episode at that point, because then that's where the narrative switches, and you have Rick giving his speech to the group.
And Daryl has some sort of rebuttal that I didn't understand entirely.
No, well, I mean, Rick was just talking and actually refers to the walkers as the Walking Dead. And Daryl's like, well, we're not the Walking Dead. And I guess differentiating them from them. I don't know.
And also, Abraham had found a bottle of whiskey and was just drinking it this entire episode.
Yeah. Um, and there's also I forgot to mention there's like a weird moment between Sasha and Abraham where he's like, I don't know, trying to like comfort her, and then she's like, "Get away from me!" And there's also the whole thing between Sasha and Noah. Um,
But that, yeah, he just picks absolutely the wrong person to admit any weakness to, right?
right,
He's like,
and also
I
to
don't think I'm
say
gonna make it, and she goes, then you're not. You're gonna die. Get out of my way.
right. So you know she's having a tough time. So I kind of think it's interesting and fitting that when she's melting down in the barn, that Maggie's the one to kind of pull her back from the abyss.
So Daryl goes off into like some sort of lobby, the barn lobby.
Yeah, the barn lobby.
Why they're not all spread out a little more? That's not 100% clear. The storm has really picked up. He looks out the door and sees all these zombies coming at the barn. I guess we're supposed to think that they're a herd that just happened to be heading at the barn because
Yeah,
it's
I
really
think it's
loud outside. There's no
I
way
think
that
it's
they're like,
random. It's
yeah.
supposed to be random. I think. Oh, yeah.
Then eventually, one by one, everybody in the group sees that Daryl is holding the door against all the zombies and goes to help, except for poor Judith, who gets put on the dirt floor. And it feels very symbolic. It feels like a dream sequence to me. I
Yeah.
remember the first time I watched this, I was like, oh, did that happen, or is this just more of this like we're hopeless, we're hopeful, we're a team, we're individuals,
Yeah.
get gobbledygook. But then in the morning,
There's
Maggie
sun.
takes, yeah, there's sunlight, there's hope. It's very symbolic, this episode. And
Yeah.
then Maggie takes Sasha outside because she wants to give her the music box that like Carl had found.
Carl found it, but Daryl
Daryl had
fixed it.
fixed. Yeah, and they go outside and it's like it's crazy. There was clearly a hurricane. There's trees fallen. There's zombies in like stuck up in the trees, which is funny.
Right, and they're like, "How did we even survive? We shouldn't have survived." And then there's like, "It's a miracle."
Mm.
And then the big ending of this scene.
Aaron comes in and comes up and introduces himself in his neat little outfit, his anorak and his
Yep.
loafers. And then it doesn't go super well when he goes inside.
No, it doesn't. And you know what? I don't really blame this group for being a little skeptical.
This is the next episode, though, when he goes inside? I think it is, right?
It is. At the end of this, he just kind of like, you know, just approaches and says that he's the friend or whatever. And that's something good that he's going to tell them. But, you know, immediately my, like, alarm bells go off looking at him. Like, he looks, you know what it felt like when he pops up in that weird little outfit? It feels a little bit like Lost.
Yeah.
You know, like when the other crew, like the Dharma or whatever the crew is, shows up and they're all dressed in these kind of like weird outfits, and you're like, how are you staying so neat? You know what I mean? Like, there's just a lot of skepticism, especially when you compare it to the group and what they've been through. This guy looks a little bit too put together and culty.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
All right, so ready to head into the next episode, which is The Distance.
The Distance.
Going
This
the
is
distance.
Aaron's purgatory for being too nice of a guy.
I guess so. This is a lot of miscommunication, and some of it is just different, very different experiences during this period of time. Our group has been through so much hell at this point, and pretty much every group that they have run into, as we talked about before, have tried to kill them, tried to eat them, tried to rape them, tried to take them over as like slaves. They have not had a lot of good luck with groups other than themselves. The one sort of exception to that was the sort of leftovers from the governor's little flock.
If anything, I feel like that should be the lesson that they're taking away is that, you know what, Woodbury was mostly good people who just had like a terrible leader.
But their whole reaction to Aaron just is speaking of this. So he's telling them all about Alexandria and all that kind of stuff, but they are very just, especially Rick, is extraordinarily just suspicious. And I understand that. I do. But I also feel kind of bad for Aaron because he's kind of like, why are you people acting like such weirdos?
Well, it's beyond suspicious. I mean,
No,
it's aggressive.
They're hostile and aggressive.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And
Aaron's
they're
about as prepared as a guy can be to do the job he's doing,
right,
with the exception of personal safety. He's obviously just like throwing that out the window.
right.
But he gets decked in the face, and he's still just like, okay, yeah, we're still doing this. I still want to recruit you guys, even though you
You
punched me
punched
for
me in the
no reason.
face. And that didn't make any sense to me. And it also feels like, do you think, I don't know, do you think that Aaron has had this experience before? Or do you think he's just totally naive? I mean,
Well, he said he's brought in some other people, and he'd had to kill some of them, right?
it feels weird his reactions to this group. Like, I don't know.
It seems like
It,
even with his buddy Eric
mhm.
out there, there's no way that he's basically he's a suicide mission. He has no idea what's going to happen.
Right.
Although he's been listening to their conversations, it turns out later, with a like a remote microphone, so he feels like he's gotten a sense of them as being good people. It's just, yeah, everything looks like he's about to get summarily executed, and Rick essentially admits to him that he is going to kill him,
Well, right.
which I
And
thought was very interesting because he doesn't tell any of the rest of his group that he's going to kill Aaron if they're not back in an hour.
right.
But then he tells Aaron that after everybody has left. So it just seems like a really kind of a dick move on Rick's part to make that call without letting anybody else have a say about it.
Right. But I feel like Crazy Town is going down in Rick's head right now.
Yes, most
so,
definitely.
so there's that. I do understand why they react because Aaron gives some pretty smart answers to stuff. So, and given their interactions with other groups, I understand why they're being so paranoid about this.
And every time he has a smart answer, Rick's like, "You've really thought this through."
Yeah,
He's
I
like,
know. It's
"I
like,
trust
yeah,
you even less now for all
I
these good
know.
answers."
It's kind of crazy.
It is
So,
nuts. But they go and find their cars, and we get to see Eric hiding behind a tractor in one scene.
yeah.
Um, but ultimately, they're like, okay, we're gonna go and check out your community. Aaron's like, okay, usually I drive. I'll tell you how to get there. And like, nope. First of all, we're gonna drive. Second of all, we're gonna do it at night, and we're gonna take a road that you don't want us to take.
Yeah.
And this is all Rick's thinking. And essentially, his chain of decisions there
Really
almost
causes them
gets
to, yeah, they like get into some pretty, but it makes for some really good Walker carnage.
sure, but it puts a lot of people at risk. Basically, the whole group. We don't get to see the RV people if they got into any trouble at all. Apparently, they didn't. But that's
Right.
his. That's the rest of his family are in there.
Right.
Carl and Judith are in there,
Yep.
and everybody in the Buick or whatever the sedan is. I mean, Glenn. Let's chalk another one, a near-death experience up for Glenn based on that. Like, within inches of being eaten.
We know they don't stop there.
But I just wanted to point out that Rick's
Yeah, Rick's
decisions.
decisions definitely put them all in danger.
Yeah.
But I understand like he wants to do the polar opposite of whatever Aaron suggests, only because he feels like it's a trap.
But by doing so,
Right.
makes bad, like, going at night is not a good idea.
No. No, no, no.
And the reason why that's a bad idea is made extremely clear by the showrunners when they drive into a pretty big horde, kill their car, and only really reunite with the rest of the group by a kind of a thin thread of narrative.
And I mean, I think it's pretty clear just based upon these decisions and Rick's reactions that he is really either off the deep end already or really, really close to just like the crazy eyes are back and they're not going away. The difference, sort of, and even the way people are talking to him, especially Michonne in this episode, it's like they're trying to reason with him, and there's, I don't know, it feels like there's an awareness that he has gone off the deep end. You know, we've seen her story arc throughout this series. She has also had some kind of moments where she is not the most sane and is definitely a loner, definitely mistrusts people. And she, of all people, I mean, she went into, if you remember, when she went into Woodbury, she was the one that definitely did not trust the governor and really was looking around and thought that there was something off about um, the whole setup there. And it's interesting to me that she is the one in this episode that's eventually convinces Rick that they should go and check out Alexandria. That's all.
Yeah, that's true.
And
Also, when Glenn is faced with the option to kill Aaron,
yeah,
as because out of some supposition that Aaron has betrayed them, which is absolutely not the case. It doesn't seem to be the case to the audience. He's like, just leave. I don't care.
I like sort of where this is going, but a lot of it did feel to me like, okay, as you said, Rick's answer to everything Aaron says is the same and just gets weirder throughout this.
Yeah.
To me, it was overdone a bit, and like the fifth time he said it, I'm just like, oh my god, somebody walk Rick back, please. So.
Yeah. But by the end of this episode, I thought was actually pretty good when he has that conversation with Michonne about like, what have we heard when we were outside Terminus
Right,
and
right.
Woodbury, nothing. So now I want to show up outside this place and listen, and I want to hear the sounds of community. I guess like that's gonna be his ultimate litmus test.
Right.
And it's like it's cool the way that that plays out, even though the process has been pretty arduous.
Yeah, this is a rough road.
Yeah. You feel like it's significant that Aaron and Eric are introduced as a couple, like as a gay couple? Do you feel like the show is working too hard to keep its cast and the story very diverse?
I felt like the way they did it here definitely felt very forced. But it's also, like, I don't know, you're going to have gay people wherever you go.
Well, we've already
So,
got Tara, and
right,
she's currently without a partner, but she's
right.
had a partner on this show already.
But yeah, I mean, I just think that the couple thing was a little weird the way they did it here, but I
The
like the
couple
little,
thing and his appearance, the fact that
yeah,
they make him very fastidious, I think is just like it's a little bit like, well, I don't know,
a little too
towing this
precious.
cliche line
Yeah,
in a way.
yeah, it's a little cliche. I do like some of their banter. I think that's fine. It definitely felt a little forced to me. And also, nobody, and not even them, would be this clean and neat. I like this. This is just not a possibility at this point, in my opinion.
Well, as we get to know Alexandria better over the next few episodes, I know we've only got one more out of this review, but we get to learn that they basically are super naive. But
Yeah, and again, I like. Well, we can talk about that part in the next episode, but I, I don't buy it. Like, it doesn't feel like they could be. But
if he's going out into the wilderness and looking for people, then he and Eric must be exposed to the real world to the point where they might not even be alive. Like, but if they're like as stealthy voyeurs as they appear to be in this episode, from their tracking of Rick's group, they would have seen some really messed up stuff.
Well, they would have, and okay, so this is why I was kind of asking you about this before. When Aaron, like, if he's run into this before, if he's had to kill people before, like if he's met with people and he's bringing them back, he talks about them sort of like auditioning to get in or talking to people about getting in if they're accepted or something like that. He's seen a lot, so I just don't know that you would hold on to this kind of this naivete that they seem to all have. And to me, this is one of those things where you and I talked about ad nauseum in Fear the Walking Dead, which is that some of these premises that the writers set up feel so contrived and not believable. And I don't think it's believable here. If this community has been able to survive this long, to me it seems kind of strange that nobody would have taken them over. You know what I mean?
Right. They do go to some effort to explain why they have been spared from zombies in season 6, right? The season 6 premiere.
Yeah, but
is
not
all
about why
it.
they've been
Right.
spared from people. So that's
Exactly. But then the wolves kind of, I guess it's just like they were on borrowed time, I guess is what we're supposed to really believe.
Yeah, I guess so.
So yeah, the distance culminates with a like I said, like a nice scene, honestly, of Rick's face very much in close up, and then the sound of children.
Mm-hmm.
Not unlike the sound of children on Reanimated right now.
Yes.
Little snorting 2-month-old.
Yep. It sounds a little bit like Maggie Simpson.
So what is our next one called?
Next one is Remember.
Greg Nicotero.
Mm-hmm.
Channing Powell.
Yep.
This is a fun intro of their arrival at Alexandria, mostly made that way by Enid's mysterious appearance and Daryl and his we brought breakfast.
Yeah, that was kind of interesting.
I really like that. I mean, it's a pretty CGI possum, but he
Hmm.
just shoots a possum real quick. And
Possums are scary.
yeah, I mean they're giant rats, but still, it's a great intro for their group. Just like not only do they do that, then also a zombie starts walking up the road, and he's like Sasha, and then she just nails it with a
Yeah, it's just
unnecessary
teamwork
bullet.
here, but I feel like this was a good way to show the group the absolute contrast between these two groups. I mean, Rick's group looks like this, like honestly, this like wandering group of
Banditos,
I guess so. I mean, they're not really well put together, but they seem pretty scrappy, and they're carrying a possum,
and they've got a baby.
and they have a baby.
Honestly, that's like the biggest grounding element that they have as a group is Judith.
True. Um, so there, you got that. And then you know, like I kind of understand the leader of Alexandria is Deanna, and
Who's
she,
Deanna?
yeah. So she used to be a congresswoman. So
Yeah.
there's that, and she is basically responsible for screening anybody that's brought in to Alexandria. So she's doing some interviews, and they do like an interesting little trick here with the way this is filmed. Um, so you know, that's kind
The
of
way that she records the interviews.
yeah, because it's
Yeah.
kind of like okay,
We're all about transparency here. I feel like she's yeah, whatever. I mean, it's a little bit like anachronistic, a
well,
lot in
it
fact.
is a lot because it's also like you're wasting energy on this thing that's I don't know. It just seems kind of crazy to me, but okay.
Well, that's part of the miracle of Alexandria, though, is that they've got electricity because they've got solar. It's this community that they've got water pressure, they've got these beautiful homes,
Right.
and so it's
Again,
there's a lot.
again, looking at all those beautiful homes and the things that they have in this community, there's some things that seem feasible and some things that are not. And again, maybe your point about them living on borrowed time and I guess resources is correct. I just still don't believe that this a setup of this magnitude in this current world would still be going. So, that's just my 2 cents.
You talking about food specifically?
Food and the energy that it would take to defend a place like this and to keep all those resources going. I just, it just seems like not really reasonable to think that all this would be still there. But, you know, and I thought that while reading the graphic novels too. So,
Yeah, but but once as Rick's group coming into this, they've got these strong walls.
hmm
They've got the power. They've got great infrastructure. All they need is food. Like that's
true.
basic and medicine, I guess. Everything else they've got enough people. It's not really clear how many of them there are, but
Well,
of
there
course, one of
are,
the
but
most
that's
annoying things as soon as they get there is the everybody hand your guns in. Then
well,
it's a bad situation.
yeah, and just even the ask is so big, and I just understand why the group is just not psyched about this. And if you, I mean, this is the same thing the governor asked of Michonne, went to give up her weapon, and for her and Andrea to give up all their stuff. So that's I'd be kind of skeptical of this if I were Michonne.
I mean, Deanna does temper that by saying you can have them back anytime you go out the gates,
Yep.
but it's just bad policy. It's like you
Mm-hmm.
don't. It's clear that she doesn't know
Yeah.
what the right rules to be imposing.
Right.
Because what possible other than like we don't want you to shoot each other or shoot our community members. There's no
Right.
reason to keep weapons out of people's hands.
Yeah. So
Are they taking knives too, or was it just guns?
that was just guns, but maybe I'm wrong. I don't remember. Like I get, just back to the resources issue. Like I get how they have the energy, which is solar energy, obviously,
Hmm.
and all of that. But like I guess it's self sufficient. But I don't know. I guess I feel like there would still have to be somebody with some expertise to keep that stuff running.
True. Yeah.
Um,
The solar panels don't last forever.
right.
I mean, plumbing. How's that? How's that working exactly? They'd need to have a water a waterworks maintenance
something.
person.
But anyway, and that's and then the food thing. The thing that bothers me about the food getting is, or the foraging, is that with a group this big, and then to have them still as naive as they are, when you
Hmm.
see what Aaron has talked about running into, I don't know. It just doesn't make sense to me.
And then
Pardon me.
Gesundheit. But then we get a double dose of this like absurdity when we go out on our when Glenn and Tara, I forget who the third person was. Who's the third Rick's group person who goes on the run with Aiden and Richard?
It's is it Noah? It's Noah.
Yeah, because okay, so this scene is very telling, right? Aiden is one of Deanna's sons,
Yep.
um, and he's like, yeah, I'm kind of a pro. I almost finished ROTC, which is just funny because that kid knows nothing. And this Richard guy, we don't really know anything about, but he was the one who opened the gate to Rick's group when they arrived. He calls their guns biscuits. When they're like, "Yeah, we're gonna get some weapons," he's like, "Yeah, I got some tasty biscuits for you." So he's just a tool. And then they go out and they're like, "Yeah, they go out and they're like, yeah, we just want to do a dry run, make sure you're up for it." And it turns out they've tied up a zombie and it got away, and then they're trying to like recapture it. We also find out that they lost 4 people in the last month on runs.
Yeah.
There's a lot of bravado going on that we're definitely picking up from Aiden and is it Richard?
Nicholas.
Nicholas, thank you. That Rick Glenn, to his credit, is not just he's like playing along, but he's also asking questions. I
Yeah, I mean, he's really like, why on earth are you guys? What are you doing with this walker? Like,
Yeah,
he's asking some leading questions, and not. I mean, he definitely has a reason to do that, and um, it's weird. Again, like this weird naivete that all of them seem to have. It's just weird. Did you? I mean, did it feel natural to you, or did this feel like it almost felt surreal to me the way that this community was functioning?
so let me put it. I guess you can read it in 2 ways. I think the performances are great. Like
No, I think they're fantastic,
yes,
but
so
it just
it reads real to me from that perspective. It's being sold in a very convincing way by the actors.
right,
However, like I think the point you're getting at is it doesn't seem likely that anybody could still be thinking this way after
right.
so many years of zombie apocalypse.
Like
No matter
even
how their walls are.
like even Carl is looking at them with like
Carl's had the
a lot of disbelief, and just kind of like, I can't believe that this stuff is going on. Like there's some incredulity there that is really, and he says something about them being like, he says to Rick something like that they're soft or something like that. I like the idea of our group, and so we've watched the trajectory of Rick's group. We have seen them from the beginning. We've seen them learning all these things. And if I were to put this particular community of Alexandria into sort of a time frame, to me they're basically like Herschel's farm, and they're like
pre-Herschel's farm, I
pre
think.
Herschel's farm, like Herschel, the way he was thinking he could cure people, and that there was this just sort of weird little surreal oasis there. That's what it feels like. And again, I just don't. That's a very hard thing for me to deal with and to believe during this episode.
To me,
It's
this
hard,
is like the quarry camp when
right?
they're just like, oh, we can just camp here and zombies will never creep up on us and surprise
Right.
us. Yeah, I
Um,
don't know.
yeah. So anyway, and it's like I guess you could look at it in a way that this group has been without all of these things for so long, and they're so skeptical of it that it's pretty hard for them to be the outsiders and to have to deal with a new set of rules, I guess. But I also understand why they are so frustrated with the Alexandria group. Like I would be.
And really, I think the scene with Glenn and Aiden after they come back from the run, and Aiden is like, "You guys aren't ready for this. Get a new job."
Yeah,
And Glenn exhibits so much restraint.
he really does.
He's pushing him. He takes a swing at him. Finally, Glenn. I don't know. Like, one thing I did think about was like, all right, I understand why Glenn would be really good at fighting zombies, but is he gonna be good at like rope-a-dope and boxing?
Probably not.
Because you don't box zombies so much, you just kill them. So I'm like, I mean, I feel like his reaction would be to put a knife in this guy's head as
Right.
opposed to ducking a punch and then, giving him this like punch to the nose that puts him down on his butt.
Yeah, but he also doesn't want to get thrown out,
I
and
get
I
that, but it's just the two fighting styles don't seem to jive.
no, they don't. And then of course Daryl gets involved, and then there's no holding Daryl back. Daryl is not going to be ducking anything.
Honestly, that scene just made me feel good. It's like, your team is winning.
Yep, and then Rick has to spoil all the fun by pulling Daryl off because he's like a mad dog.
Well, this episode really brings Rick back from the edge that you were talking about, like the fact
No,
that
it
he's
does.
you
It
know, he's already
does.
shaved, he's put on his cop uniform, or no, he hasn't actually put on his cop uniform at this point.
Not yet.
But you're like, okay, so he's like a reasoning human being again. He's rational.
Well, I mean, and he's watching this town. I mean, he is hiding guns and stuff like that, but
Right.
or trying to recover a weapon. At the end of this episode, they are basically offered a place into this community. He has definitely made a long way, like he's taken a long road back to get there.
Well, at the very end of this episode, he talks about taking Alexandria over, doesn't he?
Yes, he does.
It's a pretty dark moment for Rick, frankly, but he confides this to Daryl and Carol, like the two people who would probably most likely go along with that.
Like he hasn't said it in public. They've been offered a spot there. They're kind of like they want to make Rick and Michonne sheriffs. Do you think they would actually do that? That seemed a little unbelievable to me. To give people within this group so quickly, like a spot in like an enforcement type position.
Right, yeah, they do give him a fair amount of power, but they don't
Right.
give him a gun. They don't give him a gun to do that job.
They don't, but that's still
They
like
just give him a crappy rent-a-cop uniform.
well, I guess their status and their status, but yeah, like when Rick confides this, that's like a moment where it's
For
just
real.
it's like is he going all governor now? Because it kind
It
of felt that way.
does feel a bit like it, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Except the governor would just do it by himself and not
Well,
take out
and I
anybody
mean,
stronger than him.
he is saying it in a way because he's basically like, if they aren't going to take care of business, we'll take over the community and do it for them. It's not necessarily just because to show power. It's not in the governor's way. It's
Yeah.
almost a for their own good, for our own good kind of a thing. And now they've got a spot to be. So I guess I understand that, but he does look totally nuts when he says it.
We also get introduced to his potential love triangle partner. What's her name? Blondie does
Oh,
the
yeah.
haircuts. There's a bunch of little scenes in this episode that are kind of interesting, like Carl meeting some other teenagers and like they're like, "Hey, want to play some video games?" And like the that's what makes him respond to or talk to his dad about them being weak. We also meet Enid, who has been on the cast now for a while, who's like a garbage truck outside my window.
She's like a garbage truck outside your window.
She's just like a garbage truck outside my window. No, but
Um,
Enid's like Carl, right? She's damaged goods.
And I also should mention, because I was reading stuff about this episode, and Greg Nicotero was giving sort of some, uh, like, talking about this, and the actress that plays Deanna was talking about this too, and apparently she was basing a lot of the character on Hillary Clinton. It's
Okay.
she kind of in one of the interviews she was just saying that the character knows that she needs the survival instinct of Rick's group. So that I guess explains what I'm thinking, like my question about why they would empower Rick and Michonne so quickly.
So they recognize that they don't have a survival instinct. They recognize that they need Rick's group because they
Right.
don't have what it takes.
Right.
But how did
And
they
well,
get
and
to
it's
this
like how do you know that they're rational? How do you know that they're not going to eat you like the termites? Although they clearly haven't come into contact with other groups like that, so
Right.
I don't know. It's interesting. I mean, I like all the conflict and the things that they're working out. I just wish some of it made a little bit more sense. That's all.
Yeah, ultimately it's good.
It is.
The Aiden, like they're introducing all these douchey characters. Also Pete, the doctor,
Mm-hmm. That guy was
who
great.
this is what introduced also the term porch dick, which
Yeah.
Chris Hardwick came up with on Talking Dead, and it became a trending on Twitter thing for a while. just because of the weird way that Pete introduces himself to Rick from the shadows on his porch.
It was really creepy and strange. Did you see, because it's kind of funny, when I first watched this, I said, oh, that walker looks so much like that dude from Anthrax, and it is actually Scott Ian.
Well, we totally talked about when he was made up as a zombie.
Yeah, I know.
But I didn't. So which one was he? Was he the one where they strung him up? Or was he that one? Because I think that was the only zombie in this episode. That's the one that Tara gets her hands all caught up in his back flesh.
I think so, yeah.
It's super nasty. I hate it when they do that stuff.
But, it makes for a good, graphic scene.
It was very graphic. Oh, he's the one who crawls out from under the trash pile when Rick goes to find his gun, and it's not there anymore.
Yes.
The gun that he had hidden on his way into Alexandria. Somebody grabbed his gun out of the Cuisinart. Right. So I'm not sure how that happened.
Sorry, I was going from my notes, so it was...
No, it's all good.
From last week. But yeah, no, so there's some cool things in this episode. I kind of, the first time I watched this, at the end of this, I was like, man, I really did think Rick was going to go all governor, and that's what would happen in the next few episodes, and that's where they were going with it. Because it did leave you on the edge with his plan to, take over the whole thing for the good of the group. But I don't know. I kind of like this episode despite some of this stuff. That's
a hell of a strong quote to leave an episode on.
Yeah.
Which, to have Rick being like, well, we're just going to take this place. And it's not even like it's a good cliffhanger from week to week. It's just nice. It's a good way to end an episode is all.
No, it definitely was. And I liked it. I kind of liked where they all went and were going in this episode. So yeah, we'll see if, the savage beasts of Rick's group can be tamed or if it's the other way around.
Awesome.
All right. Well, I think that about wraps up these three.
So we'll do 13 and 14 next time, and then 15 and 16 to round out season 5.
That sounds fantastic.
And so thanks for listening to our 124th podcast here on Reanimated.
Look at that.
Baby noises come extra. You have to pay extra for those.
You can imagine them as zombie baby noises, I guess.
Zombie baby. So yeah, hit us up again next time on Reanimated when we follow up Rick's ultimatum. And with the episode named Forget.
And if you have any comments on these 3 episodes, shoot us an email at reanimatedpodcast@gmail.com, or you can throw it on, throw some comments onto the website, reanimatedpodcast.com, or throw us a tweet, or, cry a little bit. The Twitter handle is reanimatedpcast, and so... Yeah, so that about wraps it up. So until next time, ciao.
See you later. Thanks for listening.